Ready to begin on the stream? Okay. All righty, good morning, everybody. It's 9:01 a.m. here on Tuesday, August 4th, 2026, and we'll be calling this work session to order. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you are able to, please stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, and with that, first order of business is the Affordable Housing Plan Draft. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Daniela Andrade. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioner. Daniela Andrade, Housing Department. Today, we'll go over the Affordable Housing Plan update. I wanted to inform that community stakeholders and participants of housing in the county had been invited to this work session so they can submit their feedback at the end of it. They'll be attending in person and watching the stream live as well. As a background, the county current affordable housing plan was approved in 2015. In July 2025, community development combined efforts with the city of Las Cruces to not duplicate the data collection and analysis, and to work with their consultant with policy research on updating our plan. The Affordable Housing Plan is a state requirement for all local governments who will be working and investing on affordable housing. Housing New Mexico, previously known as MFA, must review and approve our Affordable Housing Plan and the Affordable Housing Ordinance to ensure compliance with the New Mexico Affordable Housing Act. They allow partnership among municipalities and counties as long as the data is sufficiently disaggregated to address each entity's unique needs. This present draft has been submitted to Housing New Mexico for a preliminary review. This is a best practice to align the plan with the requirements from the state, and we will include their feedback in the draft. Let's begin. The Affordable Housing Plan comprises 4 mandatory sections. We will go over the updated county data within the 2 first sections, community and housing profile, and the housing needs assessment. This section contains information from the 2024 U.S. population census, the 2025 Doña County survey, and the stakeholder interviews the consultant conducted countywide. The information is analyzed as the county as a whole, specifically for City of Las Cruces, and the balance of the county, which includes municipalities other than Las Cruces, colonias, and unincorporated areas. You'll see this differentiation throughout the presentation and the plan. The complete report on survey results and analysis and the stakeholder interview summary are in Appendix A, A2, and B in the draft. Section 3 is the land use and policy review, which is a comprehensive analysis of the current legal framework that the county has for developments and affordable housing. Section 4 is where we have set up goals, policies, and quantifiable objectives that the county can follow in the next years before a new updated assessment is needed. As we add the board's feedback to the plan and receive the stakeholders' input after this presentation, the next step will be to update accordingly the Affordable Housing Ordinance to initiate the official submission to Housing New Mexico for approval. Okay, let's start with Doña County's community profile and the needs assessment. I will share the key findings as briefly as possible. As mentioned before, this data is a result of the analysis of the 2024 U.S. population census and the 2025 Doña County Housing and Community Needs Survey, plus the stakeholder interviews the consultant conducted. Appendix 8 of the draft shows the complete results of this survey. Appendix A2 is a supplemental survey analysis specific for the communities in Doña Ana County outside of Las Cruces. While the survey as a whole had 742 responded, 88% of the respondents were residents, 11% were stakeholders who live in Doña Ana County, and the remainder were stakeholders who serve residents of the county but commute in from somewhere else. 70% of the respondents were Las Cruces residents. The supplemental analysis represent the responses of 210 residents of the balance of the county. Although this is not a statistically significant number, the responses provide a situational understanding of their demographics and specific needs. Let's review the major points. The demographics are shifting. While the population in New Mexico is growing at a slow 3%, Doña Ana has grown 9.6% between 2010 and 2024. The urban areas are driving the growth. Las Cruces represents now the 51% of total county population, up from 47% in 2010. Sunland Park increased around 4,000 residents, and now it makes up 8% of the county's population. Age is a very significant driver in demand for housing. The population in Doña Ana County is generally aging. We can see in the graphic that the population under 18 has decreased, while the population over 65 has increased at a higher rate. Using this demographic to address a couple of housing data we'll see later, the average household size dropped from 2.73 to 2.58 in the county, and even more so in the city. This aligned with the increase on single-person households versus the decrease of married couple households. While Sunland Park and Hatch are the youngest in the county, Mesilla remains the oldest county with a large population over 65 and over. Having an aging population drives critical physical and supportive housing needs across the county. 15% of the county's population reports a disability, with the majority of these being among aging adults. 40% of the people over 75 years and old report a disability in the balance of the county, with 38% located in Hatch and 56% located in Sunland Park. The more dominant impairments countywide in the population over 75 years are mobility limitations with a 29%, independent living support and hearing impairments have 23% each. Income. Homeowner income are nearly double those of rental households across all jurisdictions. In the county, median household income increased by 74% from $35,230 in 2010 to $61,154 in 2024. Currently, the median income 2026 for Doña Ana County is $79,900. Meanwhile, median homeowner household income increased by 53% from $50,223 to the $76,942. A median renter household income increased by 102% from $20,080 to $40,554. Even with this increase, renters face acute purchasing constraints as median home prices rose 51% post-2022. Another key finding and heavy driver on demand is the commuting and spatial dynamics. We can see in the graphic on the right that we have 19,743 in-commuters. It means people coming from outside Doña Ana County that are workforce here. They are hired in Doña Ana County. However, 25,162 residents of Doña Ana County out-commute outside of the county to be able to work. This is a major difference and affected by the industrial corridor disconnect between Anthony and Santa Teresa. 89% of jobs are held by in-commuters, while 87% of local residents work elsewhere in these areas. The major border industrial growth zone lack local workforce housing, driving severe cross-jurisdictional commuting borders. Poverty rates. This is using the calculation of poverty as defined by the U.S. Census Bureau. Doña Ana County overall household poverty remains mostly flat, with a 23 to 22% of poverty around the county. Las Cruces saw a poverty increase of 4%, rising for 19 and 2010. Anthony continues to experience the highest poverty rate with a 37%. Poverty in the region heavily concentrates in single-parent households and persons with disabilities, highlighting where target housing subsidies and deep affordability interventions are most critical. Those were the key demographic drivers for housing. The plan includes additional information and more detailed historical comparison among the county, Las Cruces, and the balance of the county data. Let's move to the household characteristics. While in Las Cruces, the single-person non-senior household is the largest component, in the county, the dominant household type was married couple at 41%. You can see the decrease in both the city and the county as a whole of 8% points, while the single-person non-senior household increased 5% overall. This is the largest drop in married couple households since 2010. In single-parent with children household, female head of household accounts for 9% in the county, while male head of household is 4%. In Anthony, we can see the drop of married with children drops at 17% points, Sunland Park 13% points, and Mesilla 9% points. Aging single population, elderly 65 or plus, a single-person households rose in all areas except Sunland Park. The housing market analysis. Single-family and manufactured housing form the backbone of the county-wide stock, while multifamily options remain concentrated in municipal centers. As we can see here, the household supply trend has been increasingly adding single-family homes, reducing the percentage of multifamily options for the missing middle. It's the people that cannot afford a single-family home, but is ready to move out of rent. So they don't have enough money to buy a market price unit because the prices of single-family home are higher of what they have in savings and what they can afford with their income. Affordable housing should be up to 30% of their income dedicated to housing. If it's higher than 30%, it's considered not affordable. Multifamilies assist in this group of the missing middle. It provides duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, apartments that become a more affordable option for families with kids or maybe relying on only one income. We can see the trend how the developers have targeted an additional number of single-family homes, since it is the more rentable or profitable option. The county should address this gap. Surging in rents and home values, we can see that from 2010 to 2024, the median rent increase went up 61%. We also face a depleted inventory and soaring prices. The median gross rent went from $641 to $1,031 in Doña Ana County, and it jumped up to $1,121 in Las Cruces. That is a 61% increase and 64% in the city. We have critically low vacancies. Extremely tight supply. It's from 3.3% vacancies for rentals with a cost below $750 a month, and 4.4% for rentals between $750 and $999. A healthy market should have at least a 5% of vacancies to provide diversity and choices to home buyers and renters. We can also see that typical home prices surged 50% overall between 2010 and 2025, from $190,000 to $283,000. Most of this increase happened post-2020. The existing needs. As we know, households who experience cost burden might be more vulnerable to displacement following job loss or rent increases. We can see several disparities exist between owner stability and renter vulnerability. The renters are burdened. 54% of renters in the county and 57% in Las Cruces spend more than 30% of their gross income in housing. The owners burn stable at 21% of both jurisdictions, and this makes renter household highly fragile to economic disruptions. For overcrowding, renters are overrepresented in the county. 6.1% of renters live in overcrowded conditions, and 3.2% of the owners. During the survey and the stakeholder interviews, we received feedback regarding what are the key resident requests. They selected rental assistance as the top priority to ensure stability, while seniors cited repair assistance funding to maintain older single-family properties. Here we can see some of the major findings in the balance of the county and top repairs needed by tenure. The homeowners talk about cosmetic improvement, remodeling, broken cracked windows, interior walls and ceilings. However, the renters have cooling system and interior walls and ceilings. The mobile home occupants, on the other half of them ask for interior walls and ceiling as the major need within a mobile home. Cooling systems as well, and remodeling. All this was across the balance of the county from unincorporated areas. Within the needs assessment, we analyzed the workforce affordability crisis. As you can see here, 4 major industries were identified. The leisure and hospitality represents the fastest growing workforce in the county with 17%. However, the people that works for this industry are priced out in rental, homeownership at 1 earner, and homeownership with 2 earners. Natural resources and mining suffer the same. They have a low wage that doesn't allow them to be able to afford at least a rental or homeownership. While in trade and utility services, which is a major employer, the media of their salaries allows rental affordability, but not homeownership. As we can see, public administration and professional careers, which is the slowest growth in the county, might be able to afford rentals. And if they have more than 1 earner, they will be able to afford homeownership, but not if it's an individual living alone. As we can see, we need a lot of help on this type of programs. Unfulfilled rental and ownership gap. The renter gap countywide reduced from 6,000 in 2020 to 4,600 in 2024. In the balance of the county decreased the need from 1,400 to 103 units as a gap. This is not just because units have been added to the stock, it's because the county has seen a shift in the income. While we used to have a higher number of people earning 30% of the area median income and below, these people shift to the next or other levels of income. That's why the need was reduced. Finally, we'll see in the needs assessment a 10-year projection affordability needs. The balance of the county might need 4,560 units estimated for the next 20 years. The total of the county, including Las Cruces, is 10,174 units estimated. As we can see, the vast majority goes to the needs in Las Cruces. However, the balance of the county, as you can see, is split by rental units and homeownership. We will need at least 1,140 units, which represent the 25% of the need, and rental units at affordable level, which is for, as you can see, divided by the different area median income. The maximum number of units is required for homeownership, and it is at this point from the 100% area median income and above. These include moderate income, which is 120%, workforce, which is the 140%, which represents all our public service, police, firefighters, nurses, teachers. 1,847 units will be needed to serve this population and above in the next 20 years. As you can see, the need is great and extremely low and very low. However, ownership for this will need heavily subsidized assistance and different initiatives other than just regular development for profit. Let's move to the land use and policy review. This item is analyzed in section 3, was thoroughly reviewed by community development and the housing department. The primary findings are, we found a zoning mismatch. Higher density housing types are permitted by right in theory, but actual land zoning for them is restricted. The majority of unincorporated land is zone T2, which is rural, prohibiting higher density housing by right. As we know, we are suffering from infrastructure deficit in the balance of the county due to inadequate water system and flooding risks. This limits the production of housing. The strong capacity exists for mobile homes, for example, but higher density multifamily rentals, housing faces, several infrastructure and zoning constraints. This is the land use analysis and zoning. As we can see, the rural has a dominance, and here all the permits medium and high density housing, but is severely limited. According to the UDC, the minimum lot size of 3,000 to 6,000 square feet and building height of 3 stories are reasonable and do not oppose major barriers. They identify a regulatory reform needed, updating the code standards for accessory dwelling units, ADUs, group homes, affordable housing subdivision. That way we can remove these barriers. This is a summary of how the zoning goes based on every district. The rural zone, as you see, any kind of multifamily as duplexes, triplexes, or apartments are prohibited. Same for medium density, which allows only duplexes. We need to highlight that in the balance of the county, the maximum barrier, the biggest barrier that we have is the lack of infrastructure to serve this type of housing. A comparison between density and financial feasibility. So when we're talking about low density, we're talking about single family homes, 2 to 4 dwelling units per acre. These represent a high subsidy gap to be able to serve to our buyers. Medium density is 6 units per acre. These might be feasible for income 120 of the area median income and above. Feasible, but it's still requiring subsidy. If we're talking about multifamily developments, which is 12 dwelling units per acre, we finally reach affordability at 120% of the area median income. I'm going to share with the commissioners the area median income so you can compare what is this in monetary income. As we can see in the chart, up to 80% of the area median income is with the federal assistance usually aims to their programs for affordable housing. But we're talking about the affordability is reached up to 120 AMI, which represent a single person earning at least $60,000. But they still will have to look for a multifamily unit, duplexes, or apartment. They are not allowed to have a single family home, disregarding the family or household size. And high density, which is a 24 dwelling units per acre, if we add donated land to that, to remove from the equation of the cost, we finally reach affordability at 100% of the area median income, with a 113 monthly payment gap for mortgage due to income. It means they will go over still over the 30% of their gross income to achieve affordability. As we can see, as the lower the density, the bigger the gap to be able to help our residents to become homeowners or find units to be able to take care of their families. As we know, in Doña Ana, we have several environmental and infrastructure constraints. In the plan, 3 major were identified: flooding hazards. This heightened risk from severe weather represents, it's the single most significant physical environmental challenge that we face, as we have unincorporated areas located in flooding zones. The water infrastructure, lack of adequate water systems and wastewater capacity, which constrains the development of unincorporated areas and restrict missing middle housing build-outs. And it was recommended to regionalizing utilities and expanding development reviews, expedited development reviews in areas where water service providers have existing capacity, which is essential for growth. Multifamily rental capacity. The multifamily developments rely heavily on central water and sewer connection, which are severely lacking in these areas that we discussed. This is obviously constrained by the zoning bottlenecks because we cannot serve higher density developments, but also because of financial viability. Feasibility requires 12 to 24 dwelling unit per acre in order to serve lower income tiers. So all these gap subsidies will have to be addressed with different financial mechanisms. Special needs and fair housing. The UDC, the Unified Development Code, lacks explicit land use definitions and setting criteria to support group homes, congregate care, and emergency shelters. The county needs to streamline administrative process for ADA fair housing accommodations. And we found vulnerable groups as elderly residents, the agricultural workers, disabled individuals, and shelter households. They face acute shortages of accessible housing and services. There are several ways that we can strategize to promote a better affordable housing environment and to promote better policies. Identify village redevelopment sites and delineate infill incentive areas in the UDC with modified standards and expedited reviews. This is something that internally Doña County can do. We will seek federal and state grants, for example, to fund demolition of derelict uninhabitable structures to yield clean infill sites. And we can leverage scattered site community land trusts and live workspaces for affordable homeownership. The county has done a couple of updates on their policies during these times since the last affordable housing plan. The affordable housing subdivision design standard was adopted to improve density and reduce costs. And the mixed-use zone also permits a small-scale commercial mix with site-built residential to encourage compatibility. We just need to work on top of those to make it friendlier for affordable housing. As I mentioned, all these reviews and comments have been analyzed by community development, and they find that these updates, changes, or analysis will be possible. For the goals and policies, which is the section 4, there are several items that we'll go over, like funding resources and barriers identified to come down to the goals that we found that we could promote in the next years. So the federal grants from the Department of Housing and Urban Development for infrastructure and housing program is something that we can tap into. Unfortunately, we're not a direct entitlement, so we will have to compete with the rest of the state through a competitive grant process. However, we can access these funds in a regular basis, at least annually, and apply with different programs for it. We also have the home funds for rental and construction projects and the potential of low-income housing tax credit for developers. The state funding, several ways of tap into those funds, leverage New Mexico Primera Fund, New Mexico Housing Trust Fund, linkages of supportive housing programs, and New Mexico state housing tax credits. In addition, the state legislature authorized special appropriation from general fund and capital outlays in 2025 and 2027 to support affordable housing projects. That's something that we still can apply for. We found institutional and operational constraints. Of course, the county had a fragmented land use infrastructure, transportation, and colonial policies. However, the county created a housing department, and that will help integrating the the housing capacity and analyze all these plans as a whole with housing in the center. The UDC and multi-level reviews. According to the stakeholder interviews and the analysis of the land use and policy, we have an overly broad and outdated UDC code, which can cause variance requests that might create conflicts between neighborhoods. We also have to go through multi-agency reviews, for example, with BLM and the state land, and these stalled projects. It is recommended to dedicate coordination liaisons to these reviews to expedite and keep up with the projects. One is constraint that was identified in Doña is land tenure and clear titles. In many areas, homes are inherited without probate filings, leaving an unclear title across multiple generations, which make it difficult to develop, subdivide, or access traditional finances. As if they don't have the proper documentation, they won't be able to apply for federal subsidies. One of the biggest highlights of the plan was the systematic prioritization needed. An estimated 25 to 30 colonias still lack basic services, including paved roads, drainage, and wastewater collection. Project progress has historically relied on constituent advocacy rather than stricter need, creating severe disparities where some communities are fully modernized while adjacent ones remain unserved. Legal complications such as home-built and obsolete township plats further restrict public investment. As we know, we have several threshold barriers when we face disasters. However, the county has been working efficiently and diligently to bridge these allocations and issues. All the actions that the board and the Office of Emergency Management took during the 2025 flood event show that we are prepared to serve our community and secure any funding that might be needed in the future, of course, from the federal government. That brings us to how we define our strategic priorities. For goal number 1, we will address affordable housing, pursue resources to facilitate the development of new affordable ownership and rental housing communities. We'll commit to develop at least 400 affordable units, which is below 80% of the area median income, and attainable housing between 80% and 100% of the area median income in the next 5 years. We will utilize a community land trust to preserve this as a permanent subsidy subdivision. And these 400 units will be on top of the units that are developed by the private sector without public assistance subsidies. This might help reduce at least 10% of the housing needs that we will see in the next 20 years. A community land trust is the right tool for this goal because it permanently retains the public subsidy invested in each home through the structure of a ground lease, ensuring that every dollar the county commits today creates affordability not just for the first buyer, but for every subsequent resident for generations. The community land trust model benefits the community by developing and stewarding homeownership opportunities as an alternative to rent, aligning mission and being a trusted partner of county housing, creating a housing program continuum that seeks to stabilize house, lease, or rent, create homeowners, and be an economic engine to the neighborhood. Goal 1 includes several operational objectives that are already in motion. such as identify target locations for new affordable and attainable development in the next 5 to 10 years that align with planned infrastructure extensions. For this end, community development will provide a GIS map that identifies these parcels and allow us to track these over time. Having dedicated county funding to support the community land trust as a permanent affordability investment to create affordable and attainable development and match with competitive state funding, as the board did in November 2025 with the inclusion of the community land trust in our ICIP. New objectives are, for example, exploring new financial tools, create housing that benefits the community as a whole with public and private partnerships, and work with private developers to include affordable units within the new developments to create a continued addition to our housing stock. For goal number 2, support strategic growth through aligning affordable, attainable housing goals and development and investment opportunities. This goal includes 3 operational objectives. Make modifications to the land use code to streamline ADU approvals. Expand missing middle housing in rural zones. Identify land acquisitions or conveyance to affordable and attainable development partners. Establish an interdepartmental coordination team to align housing, infrastructure, capital improvement, and economic development priorities for colonias and unincorporated areas. For goal number 3, community outreach. Expand housing information, outreach, and resources to developers and the broader community. This is a high priority goal and is all about informing and assisting the community to learn more about housing programs and the resources available, not only within the county, but connect them with existing opportunities. As part of the stakeholder interviews and the survey, we identified that most of the resources are in Las Cruces, and our residents need to commute and sometimes have to have long waiting periods to access information and resources. We need to address that, and we can do it in several ways. The Housing Department website will be a good tool, creating workshops and trainings outside of Las Cruces in order to alleviate their demand, but also to serve the people where they are. Create easy-to-understand guides, materials of the UDC to make it easier to digest and understand. Adopt a process for reasonable accommodation for units or public or common use areas for a person with disabilities when zoning standards cannot be met. And finally, establishing an interdepartmental coordination team with Health and Human Services that recognize the critical link between stable housing and community health. The final 2 goals, supportive housing and best practice tracks. As we know, the county has a few units of supportive housing. We want to capitalize on that and develop a supportive housing community for unhoused residents. In a 20-year target, the goal is to build 2 to 3 permanent supportive housing developments, delivering 350 deeply affordable units in partnership with the Community Land Trust. The county has made progress by launching a pilot program for justice-involved single adults. The future might include supportive communities tailored for single mothers and other vulnerable population. The final goal is best practice tracks. As the county housing infrastructure is built, add new programs and best practices that have been successful in peer counties and cities. This will have a 2-pronged approach: property stabilization, preserve existing housing stock, protect rural residents, and mitigate displacement. And the second area of this is education and advocacy. Conduct civic workshop, homeowner financial literacy, and community campaigns to build sustained public support for affordable housing. Thank you. I stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Andrade. Commissioner Chaparro?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, all. Good morning, Daniela.
Good morning, ma'am.
And I apologize for coming in and out. There was some phone calls I had to take. But as I'm looking at these goals, and I think they're very attainable, number one, but when can we start? Do we have a timeline? And as I was listening and also going over these yesterday, if we can address the timeline first. So I'm particularly looking at goal number 3, community outreach. And you're saying that is one of the highest priorities. So do we have a plan on when we can commence that?
Mr. Chair, Madam, yes, we do. I'll provide an additional updates after this presentation regarding certain of the tasks that are already being completed and are in progress. But regarding your question, the education and community outreach component will be the first one we will need to hit. We already have a program portfolio that at least 30 programs that will be developing as the housing department grows, and we have a staff ready to do that to address not only the programs for assistance and direct assistance to our community, but also to educate them on what their rights are, what their needs are, and what they can do for the future to become better renters and someday homeowners. So we do have education as something that is going to happen in this fiscal year. And then after that, we will promote constant education plan for homeowners and tenants as well.
So when we're talking about the fiscal year, are we talking about a month, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days? Was my question.
Of course, ma'am. Currently, I have the list of all the trainings that we will need to do. We will, as you know, housing department is a one person currently. We're hiring. As soon as I have a team and I'm hiring at least 2 people to the team, they will be tasked to not only create the RFP for this and find the better way, if we have internal resources, if we have state resources, but we aim for at least in the next 6 months to create the content of the programs, the trainings, hire someone, either a consultant firm or partner with Housing New Mexico to provide this assistance. We can also reach out to the Department of Housing and Urban Development to provide assistance and be able to start within the fiscal year, which will be next 2028, January to June, to be able to deploy pilot training programs in our unincorporated areas.
Thank you. So my next question is, you mentioned problems with people securing title to property to obtain generational wealth or a generational family home. Have you spoken to the probate judge to perhaps having clinics throughout the counties so that advice can be given, and also sponsoring free legal clinics to address this? Because I know there's attorneys in town that are already providing these services at free legal clinics. So is there a thought to join with them to have an attorney there and maybe streamline the process? Because some people really don't know where to go. And if we have those attorneys that can maybe go to Hatch or Sunland Park or Vado or wherever these clinics can be established, that might be helpful, I think. I know a lot of people don't know where to go, and that might be one of the steps.
Mr. Chair, Madam, yes. Our Housing Strategic Task Force, as you know, has been working the last 2 months, and they supported and promoted the idea of not only providing these type of assistance, but also partner with all legal clinics and even maybe reach out to private firms to see if their pro bono time is interested in collaborate with us. All this has been thrown through the operational housing plan that I'm gonna be talking after this. And as we define how these type of programs will work with the legal department and what is the reach that the county can have. We also want to be able to promote any kind of service available to the residents on our website so we can connect them. Another part of the plan is to actually define a process, because a lot of the time is not knowing where to go and not knowing where to ask. So the workload will be internal first, to figure it out, a good process with all the different variations that some of the residents might have. And when legal and, of course, the board approves this, we will be able to partner with not only the private judge, but hopefully private partners as well to serve the community. But thank you, yes.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, Mr. Chair. So I've had calls from our citizens lately regarding county ordinances. Las Cruces has allowed little casitas to be placed along primary residence, and I know that you have to talk to community development, but I've heard complaints where you have maybe an acre or two, and the ordinances are so strict that they're not allowing little casitas or maybe a duplex to be placed on that. Who's responsible for that? Is that you, Ms. Ainsworth, to push forward on that? Or I just thought this might be a good opportunity for me to get that response.
And I think while Ms. Ainsworth's coming up to, Commissioner, I think one of the other things that has to be considered is the fact that while in the city of Las Cruces, they have sewer and utilities, and one of the challenges we have is that there's a significant amount of areas across the county where we don't have that. People are on septic. So then you have guidelines by NMED that set that. So I think like even now to have I could be wrong, but I think to have like a 3-bedroom, a plain septic system for a 3-bedroom house has to be something like 0.7 acre, 3/4 of an acre lot, right. Which, nowadays to buy land, to do that, it's almost restrictive. It prices people out to live in the county unless it's a very small home. Otherwise, then they require you to have advanced septic systems, which cost exorbitant amount of money to be able to do that. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing is that as we see development, I know in my district, you're seeing them build on 1-acre homes, and they're selling them as, you get space. But the reason they have to do that is because of the land needs for leach fields, things like that, for the septic system. And I think that's something we have to address as we talk on our infrastructure needs. How do we navigate that? And I don't know, Ms. Ainsworth, I don't know if you can address, but I think that's part of what the challenges that we have with approving some of these.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Chaparro, that is only part of it. Our ordinance is restrictive, and we have made efforts over the last couple of years to build in some flexibility. One of the issues that we had is that the size of the accessory dwelling is limited in most zoning districts, and we were able to raise that cap in some of them. We're planning to come back with another round of amendments to the UDC that would allow in all districts a larger accessory dwelling unit. And why that cap is there, I'm not sure. It was approved that way back in 2016. I believe that we should not be limiting the size of the accessory dwelling unit, and I think we should be looking at allowing them by right in more districts. One of the issues we've encountered is opposition from some of the members of the community. There are areas where people do not want accessory dwelling units, or they don't want their neighbors to have accessory dwelling units. But there are many areas of the county where it would be appropriate, and it would certainly allow for a lot more affordable housing opportunities if we did allow it by right. So you can expect to see that within the next few months. Of course, it will be going to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their recommendation, and then it would be coming before you along with some other amendments that we're planning for the UDC.
I love that answer, Christina, because I'm thinking of people that have lived on their property for years, and it's a family home, and the property is large enough so they can build a casita for their mother-in-law or for the abuelita. And so I'm thinking of that as I visit my district, and I've have visited in the Sunland Park, Santa Teresa area. And so that question came to mind. And if we can, commissioners, move that along quicker, because I know that the seniors in the county are having a very difficult time finding homes. So thank you for that. You just made my day, quite honestly. So if we can move forward on that quickly, I would appreciate it. For our two assistant county managers that are here, I think that should be one of our priorities, is making certain that those ordinances where those caps are lowered in the areas that we are allowed to lower the caps, so that hopefully private developers can move forward on perhaps addressing this housing issue. Thank you. Thank you, Christina, I appreciate it. So I have another question. I am aware that the renters are sometimes afraid to go to court to have the rent abated if they don't have air conditioning or plumbing problems or whatever problems they have. Is there anything we can do to alleviate that fear? I know some of the landlords are perhaps not providing appropriate housing for the rent that they're charging. And I don't know the answer to that. Because if they report the issue, then the landlord says, well, you can't live here, so you're out until I fix a problem, and the problem isn't fixed, and then they get the next renter.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Chaparro, as housing, the only thing that we can start doing is educating both landlords and tenants on the Fair Housing Act and on tenants' rights. And those are considered within the programs that we were discussing for education. People need to know what they can ask for and that they do not have to settle. And landlords need to also understand what having a business and receiving income put them in the responsibility of providing a good service. So as part of the Fair Housing Act and all the trainings that is not just for the housing people, but also for our community, we want to educate all parts involved and then move from there with partnerships and promote these all across the county with our other incorporated areas like Sunland Park, Mesilla, Anthony, Hatch, and the Mesilla Valley Public Housing Authority, and promote all this so our community understand that they have rights and they deserve to live in a dignified household with all the services that are paying for.
And if I may suggest, just
Yes.
because I'm seeing this very often, every week when I go to court, I'm seeing these issues with landlord-tenant issues, and maybe creating a flyer or maybe talking to the magistrate judges and allowing the county to have a desk somewhere so that information can be relayed to the landlord and tenants. I'm just throwing ideas out there. I'm seeing it every week. And I've been an interpreter for years and years and years, and I don't think there's a week that has gone by where there's not been a landlord-tenant issue where the landlord is perhaps not knowledgeable on the law or not wanting to follow the law, and the tenants are being ejected for reporting the problem. And I don't know the answer to that, but my suggestion would be is maybe setting up the magistrate court once a week, if we're allowed to do that, and speaking to both landlord and tenants on certain days. And I just don't remember the calendars. There's 8 judges over there. But perhaps speaking to them might give us some more ideas. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Kimball?
Mr. Chair, I'd like, Daniela, thank you for being here. This is really, really interesting. And along with what Commissioner Chaparro says, who enforces the Fair Housing Act? Do you have to go to court to get relief?
Well,
Do you know?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
the county, it's guided by policy and resolution to enforce and adopt the Fair Housing Act. And I'm gonna say, when it becomes a private, outside of the county relationship, such as tenant, landlord, we might not be able to intervene, but we definitely can assist.
So basically, they have to file a lawsuit if there's a problem?
They will have to follow the proper channels, yes.
So when you're talking about somebody in a very low rent mobile home, trailer, and they're being treated poorly, there's very little they can do for recourse, right?
I'm kind of curious. I don't know if it's all possible. I was kind of curious how, I know we have Ms. Green here.
Ms. Green.
I don't know. I was just curious if how the city, is there a way that the city of Las Cruces handles that if you see those cases and if it's the same or any guidance? Just kind of curious to understand how you all handle it.
Good morning, Commissioners. Natalie Green for the record, Housing Administrator for the City of Las Cruces. So we have several things. One, if it's a landlord-tenant issue, we do have a hotline, so residents can reach out, and we do take county calls, so 575-528-3022. As part of our landlord-tenant efforts, we purchased well over 1,000 landlord-tenant handbooks in both English and Spanish, so we have copies of those and happy to connect Daniela to New Mexico Legal Aid, who publishes those. And we pass those out both at City Hall, and then we also email the link when residents reach out to us. In terms of fair housing, the city does have a comprehensive fair housing ordinance, and we can take cases through municipal court if it's in city limits. However, historically, we have a referral process, and we send that to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and their fair housing team. And they have a hotline, a website, and an app where residents can submit complaints. I will say that under this current administration, we are seeing less enforcement of fair housing issues, but we can, and we'll continue to work with Daniela on all of these as we have some of this infrastructure in place. So I do want to congratulate you guys on taking this bold step forward. I was listening to the legislature last week, and they had a presentation by Pew Research, and they talk about how housing issues and the housing crisis is really a regional issue. So us working together regionally is what's going to move the needle. So looking forward to that.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's it.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add, Stephen Lopez, one of the acting county managers. One of the challenges that we have as a county is we do have, and I know this is a term some people don't like, but it's true. We have some slumlords out there who are absolutely taking advantage of certain individuals. It's a cash basis rent, month to month. There's no contract, there's no lease. And those tenants are very much under the thumb of those slumlords. Some of these don't have regular electricity. They're running off extension cords run from a neighbor's house. Some don't have windows or doors. And from the county side, Christina's team is already working on changing our environmental codes officer positions to codes officer positions so they can do more than just address weeds and trash, and they can actually help us address things like housing that is non-compliant. It's going to take us a little while to get that team trained up. Christina and the team and I were just meeting last Wednesday discussing that transition. But we also need, as Daniela pointed out, we need a place for these people to go. And that's where the housing stock really needs to be developed. And that's going to take the county, and it's going to take our private partners.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Kimball. Hey, Daniel, I know this was a lot of information as we were going through. And I think what's interesting is when you look at percentages, it's almost in some ways misleading in a way, right? Because I was just taking some notes where when we look at the increase in income, I think it was early on in the presentation, you talked on the median income of, on slide 7, owners versus renters. And what we see is basically a little over 50% increase in median income for owners and then 100% increase for renters, which, probably, I think when you look at percentages, that sounds amazing because that's a huge jump in that time frame. But then, because I just happened to look, there was another one where you said, I think on the next, like one of the next slides, where you talk, rent has increased by 61%. And our average increase in income has increased, like in here, it says 74%. But really, the reality is, we were so low in terms of income, and so while it's great to see that we've seen progression in that, it's just like we're not there. Because I know you had the average rent increase to $1,000, a little over $1,000, which prices out a lot of people. I was kind of curious, when you look at this data and you look at these median incomes, where did this, I guess the values, what population was this pulled from, the data, when you determine the median income?
Mr. Chair, the area median income, it's pulled from the U.S. Census information, had used that information for this. So it's the whole Las Cruces metropolitan area, what they call, and includes Doña County.
Okay.
Unfortunately, in the income, Las Cruces and Sunland Park create a very heavy deviation on the income of the rest of the area. As we can see, Sunland Park increased 171% on income, average income. And that totally skews the rest of the county, as we know that other areas didn't increase that much.
Yeah. And I think that was, because that was my next question, I think on slide 9. You had, we talked on poverty by jurisdiction, but was kind of curious, I don't know if we can see at all, what the poverty is it by census tract or even the actual communities? Because I was kind of curious where, as we talk and look at all the different colonias across the county, was there any one area in particular that was lower versus, if I look at Doña, which is just right outside of the city of Las Cruces, is there, maybe that's a little closer in terms of values to, or the data to the city of Las Cruces? That I was kind of curious to understand that piece of it, because I think I would love to understand, is there a way for us to address those areas in particular that have even lower, if we have significantly lower income and significantly higher poverty in some of our colonias, is there a way for us to address that? Because I think in those areas, that's probably one of the bigger needs, to create housing in those areas without having to create huge logistical issues for those residents that now have to, if they live like in Salem and we say we have homes further south, well then maybe their job is close to there, or their family or whatever. Like I said, I think when we look at the strategy, hopefully we can figure out how we can attack that along with where we see the data is. One of the things that I just made a note of, because I know you talked about the federal disaster amounts and how we've tried to address that piece of it, and just for the public's knowledge, that there was the note that right now a lot of what we see in the county is it doesn't reach the threshold of disaster limits. And the reason it doesn't these days is because the federal government increased significantly that bar from what it used to be. And so, like, when we look at Vado, that was the county stepping in because we weren't able to address or meet that disaster amount. And so I think that's what's going to become important for the county, is that we're going to be having the ones to step in to help our residents, because the federal government is not going to be the one there that's going to help us in the future, unfortunately. And I think, as Ms. Green noted, I think in, under this administration, we're seeing HUD not, help with enforcement either. So unfortunately, we're not seeing that, at least for the next couple of years, we're not going to see that change, which is really frustrating. On probate, I think you hit a particular point, Commissioner Chaparro, on probate, because I think we just had a case where we were remediating a property, and the person had not, after the death of the owner, the next of kin had not addressed that. And so what happened is it's no longer could be taken care of by the probate judge, it has to go to district court. And a couple of notes I made and just was, I know the county clerk has her podcast, that they actually did a episode on probate and the importance of it. And it was just interesting because I didn't, I think as I've had, me personally, I've had some people in my family pass, it's like you never, sometimes that's the last thing you think about is having to go and have properties probated and all the processes. So I think as you said, Commissioner Chaparro, finding ways that we can educate people is going to be important. But I was just wondering, and maybe you can help answer this for me, Commissioner Chaparro, when we have the fees for district court, where are those set? Is that by the state or the ACO? Like where are those fees determined? Do you know?
It's by the state, I believe, and I know that there are ways to become or apply for indigent services and even for the fees. And I know the judges can waive a lot of those fees. I also know the administrative offices of the courts are very much involved in the fees. So maybe working with them so that lawsuits can be moved along. Most of the landlord-tenant cases, and Alonso, jump in if I'm incorrect, but most of the landlord-tenant cases commence at the magistrate court level because it's under $10,000. There's some that are higher, but
Yeah. And I was, because I was wondering, as we get ready to go into the next legislative session, if that was something, seems to me there should be some ability, or my hope would be there would be an ability to address some of those fees so that we could make it affordable, because I could see those fees becoming a barrier where people are like, oh man, it's gonna cost me this much. I'm not gonna go and take care of this now. And so maybe there's an opportunity there, or incorporate it into, if there's ways for people to apply for waivers from the court, I think that would be an amazing thing. But I love the idea, Commissioner Chaparro, that you had of trying to find ways to bring the magistrate court or, out to the communities, because if we could take care of the services and get that important piece done, that would, be a big step. The only other item I had, and I was kind of curious, as we go through the, as Christina noted on revising the UDC, and I think a little bit, I think you had talked about it, I didn't make a note of the slide, but the potential of having mixed commercial, here we go, the mixed use zone. And, I think there's a lot of potential for this in where we can have commercial and potentially, residential above. And by doing that, by having cost split, it creates an opportunity because it becomes affordable to the developer, but also brings more economic development into that area. And so I would love to see, I don't know if, I think Commissioner Sergio Hernandez had once suggested to me in an idea that he had, which was to do something like a TID in all of our colonias, like in the sites themselves, to try to spur that type of development where maybe, we can do commercial with mixed use, do some residential with commercial, and see how the private businesses can maybe help us with creating inventory in those areas. And I think one of the things that I love the idea of it, because as we go through and update, similar to, I think, hopefully how the city of Las Cruces has done, it just happens that a lot of our communities and those are already being served by sewer in those areas in the community. I think like Doña, Hatch, I know Hatch doesn't technically fall, I know they're their own municipality, but like I said, I think those areas already have sewer, which creates the ability, or at least gets past the infrastructure limitation. Or if there was a need, potentially we could do a PID as well. I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to come up with ideas of things we haven't done before, to get creative and try to start spurring this. So I'm excited to see what changes come to the UDC and make it more accessible. I think, as Commissioner Chaparro noted, I think that I love the idea of how do we get the ability to have those accessory buildings or casitas, because not only is it becoming more and more expensive for senior living and helping address those in our seniors as they age, but I think there's also been more of an emphasis to keep them, give them some independence, but keep them in the family so they're not feeling like they're being pushed away. And so I'd love to see where that goes. So I'm excited. I think the last thing I have was, do we have any updates on the Community Land Trust Initiative?
Yes, sir. And if we're okay with moving on the draft, I can provide those updates that I planned. I'm taking notes of everything you have shared. And let me say that the work that the consultant did on reviewing the land use and policy and the review of the UDC was very thorough, and community development supported the initiative. So we are very excited to see all the changes that were mentioned and other that, are very technical and not here, coming to fruition and supporting affordable housing in a better way. So thank you for that. And as we add these comments to our draft, we will be bringing any substantial change that Housing New Mexico might suggest to you. If it's something not substantial, we will bring the resolution to you with an updated ordinance to start implementing our plan.
And Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I think you brought up a great point to identify the areas that are most at risk, regardless of the district it is, where housing can be provided, and maybe form some private-public partnerships. I know, at least in my district, I have some very affluent residents, but if you go further east, I have people living in mobile homes where they put llantas on the roof, or they put tires on the roof so the wind doesn't blow their roof away. And some of those mobile homes are very, very old. So if we can work towards identifying the areas that need to be addressed quickly, I would appreciate that. I think that was a good idea. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, if we can please open attachment 1.2. Well, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the first update from the Housing Department is about the Housing Strategic Task Force. As we mentioned, it was informed to you that we will request staff from the county to volunteer for this task force to create the 5-year operational plan from the Housing Department. It is my honor to present the deliverables and say that we complete and met our goals ahead of the scheduled timeline. The people that work in this team came from a diverse of departments. We had Public Works, the Office of Emergency Management, the Legal Department, Facilities, HR, Budget, Health and Human Services, the Clerk Office, and the Fire Department. So it was a very robust team, with a very technical approach that also brought the community input on the needs. This plan will provide the roadmap for the housing department for the next 5 years. It aligns with the goals that we discussed in the affordable housing plan and aligns with everything that the board has mentioned today. We will follow 5 goals internally. We will have our own measures and key performance indicators will be reported periodically to the board and to the leadership. And finally, the last deliverable that this task force helped us put together, as I mentioned, was the portfolio programs the housing department will be creating to be able to apply for grants, to be able to serve the community directly, and for training and outreach. All these programs were prioritized based on different components such as operationality, financial feasibility, and community impact. I wanted to highlight the work that the task force provided to the housing department. It was an addition of the daily task, so I just wanna show my appreciation, and I hope some of them were here, they were invited. They just wanted to work in the background, and sometimes they don't like to be recognized, but we did all this in 7 weeks, and our goal was 8, so I was very proud of them, and I'm very excited of seeing this come into fruition and being implemented. Thank you. For, if they can open, please, attachment 1.3. Coming to the update of the Community Land Trust, we have exciting news. Our contractor, engineering architectural firm provided the first draft of what would it look like, our Community Land Trust. While we still work with BLM on the acquisition of land, we have moved forward with the preliminary design. This is a combined effort from Public Works, the Flood Commission, and the Housing Department working to assess all the risks involved in the area. As we know, we have some arroyos crossing through, and we can see how all this will not only benefit the area of the community land trust, but will benefit the communities nearby. And it will plan for the future on how to address all these needs. Quickly, the green areas, of course, dark green will be active recreational areas. The light green will be passive open spaces. Of course, this is just a very, very initial sketch. We can see the colors of the little squares and bubbles identified as density. The lighter color, it's the low density residential. We will be single family homes. The color, I'm gonna say pink on the far left by Hawthorne Road, address what you were commenting on, Mr. Chair, commercial area, since these commercial area will serve not only these subdivision, but the planned regional park that is across the street from Holman. So we have mixed use areas in the red and the high density or apartments in the color brown in the north side by Arroyo Road. The little green dotted line across is a trail system that will connect all the open spaces with the recreational areas. And the county will work on the streets surrounding the subdivision to handle the traffic. As we said, it could be at least a minimum of 400 units with an estimated up to 800 depending on density. As you can see, the whole area is 366 acres with 128 of potential housing lots. That is a lot of residential area. This is the proposed design so far. If any feedback after you heard all the trends that we have in our affordable housing plan, this is highlighting 23% for mixed use with commercial at the bottom, residential on the top, high density in apartments, 17%, medium density, which is duplexes and triplexes, 23% of the land, and low density, single-family homes at 38%, since it's the majority of area required for the construction. If you have any feedback on this, we will welcome, as we will have a couple more renderings that we will bring to the board for your feedback as we nail down the requirements on not only the residential and housing requirements, but infrastructure as well.
Just a question, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
Daniela, thank you. This also has made me very happy. That's 2 happies in one day. I'm waiting for a third now. But I'm happy to report this is in my district, and I think it's going to work exceptionally well. My question is, and I don't know if maybe Mr. Lopez can answer this question, because I know he drives around in his truck often in my district, because he lives in my district. So what I'm thinking is there's a little area off of Sonoma Ranch and Callejitas where they have little townhouses and little walking paths and teeny tiny little grass areas for children to play. Is that what I'm envisioning with this? Is that the kind of development that is coming to mind? where you
Mr.
have
Chair
perhaps a
and
little
Commissioner
green area
Chaparro,
and
yes-ish, kind of, but much bigger. So if you look up in the apartment complex area along Arroyo Road there, you'll notice that there are 3 and 4 acre parks. So those are kind of what you're thinking of in the Callejitas area. But you'll also notice kind of in the center, there are 3 10-acre park areas that actually combined are larger than Young Park. And they have been split up a little bit so that there's better access and there's not that kind of Young Park right now. If you're in the middle of Young Park, there's no natural surveillance from the surrounding neighborhoods and the streets, which does cause some concern of people using that, especially in the evenings. So this has actually been designed to provide that natural surveillance and connectivity to the community. So it will definitely have those small little pockets of green space, and then it'll also have that opportunity for some really large areas.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what it's going to look like, and I really like the way this is divided. I think we can do a little bit of work on it that might make it more advantageous for the people that live there, but great start. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chaparro. Commissioner Kimball, did you have any questions? Okay. I just want to echo what Commissioner Chaparro said, because I think one of the things that I think after the presentation we had of that preliminary plat a couple of meetings ago that we had by the Thurstons, I think like that's what I think comes to mind, and what I particularly love the idea that I didn't realize, it took me a second to see that active recreation open space area, because it was a different color, but it does create that kind of continuity right in the middle. And while I think that's going to be critical, because I think as long as we have these places in the community for them to be able to come and congregate and have some of those open spaces, I think we've seen more and more of that in other communities across the U.S. And so I'm excited to see us leveraging that. And I think even just having a draft is what really kind of makes it exciting, because it's like there's the thought that was there to be very intentional about how we're doing this, and that we can leverage into the next step. So yeah, I'm really excited about where this is going. I mean, and it's funny because I'll say one of the things when we had our board retreat, this project, the Community Land Trust, was one I had heard from a couple of other people from other departments that this was exciting to them. And I think that was really, really awesome feedback, because, you know, we've been trying to work on our roads initiative. We've tried to work on a bunch of other things, but the fact that they saw this as something they're excited about was very fulfilling for me. And I appreciate everything you've done, Daniela, because I know you have created, you are the housing department, and you're starting from scratch to create this as from new. I know. So this is such an important piece. We've seen what they've done in the city of Las Cruces. So I think as Ms. Green said, I'm excited for the future partnerships and how we can continue to do that. And I think doing this in the East Mesa is, because that's been the area of significant growth in Commissioner Chaparro's district, makes absolute, I'm excited for how that grows and brings more to the community and continues that. So thank you so much, Daniela.
Thank you. And if I may, please, they can open attachment 1.4. Let's see if we can give another good news. To the beginning. Mr. Chair, you were mentioning about the Solar Springs subdivision that was presented last month. So in June 23, 2026, the Community Development Department and Ken Thurston Development presented the Solar Springs community type and preliminary plat approval at the BUCC meeting. In response to this, the board's feedback regarding traffic concerns and noted that this is the first county's community type subdivision, leadership, county community development, and the housing department evaluated a potential partnership with the developer to promote affordable housing. As the Solar Springs subdivision develops and traffic increases at these primary access points, road improvements will be necessary. Because the county already plans to expand Peachtree Hills Road, adding the third line presents an efficient solution. Jornada Road could be another potential improvement to be considered. In exchange for this county investment, the developer will dedicate lots from the Solar Springs subdivision to the Community Land Trust, providing opportunities for subsidized, permanently affordable homeownership. If the board supports this potential partnership, the county and Ken Thurston developers will proceed with negotiation to formalize a development agreement. As we can see in the screen, this is the originally submitted preliminary plot from Solar Springs. We can see the area at the south of Peachtree Hills Road that will need improvement, potentially Jornada Road on the west side. Any comments?
No, I'm excited for the partnership and get us, because I think that, anything we can do to move forward with the land trust even and create, I know it won't be, I think it'll be the first land trust in the area. And so I'm excited for how we can bring this tool to the community and hopefully create generational wealth. So I'm excited. This is really good news.
Thank you.
I was just speechless because, where do you go with that? So thank you.
I'm glad.
I think it's great. We don't often get that kind of good news unexpectedly. That's nice. I agree. We need to do whatever we can, and this is anything to help the Community Land Trust, I think, as well. I think it's such a great concept, and it's going to serve a lot of people, and I'm excited about this, too. Thank you.
Thank you all.
I think that's I think, there is, yes, interest that we want to move forward with it, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Is that, and that was the grand?
And this is the grand finale of the housing update. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Daniela. All right. Did you want us to? All right, the second item on our agenda will be talking about the Community Monitoring Committee related to Project Jupiter. I had received a proposal from members of the public, and so I'd like to invite Ms. Lynn Moore, if you'd like to come up and provide the presentation on the proposal. And I know I know they just passed out the file you had. I don't know if there was any files you needed to present online or any slides.
There are no slides
Okay.
for this presentation at this time. I'm giving you the full text, and you'll see, for those of you who have seen an earlier version of this is expanded somewhat. This provides more detail. But I think this will tell you everything as to where the plan is right now, and then, of course, it'll need to be tweaked as it goes forward. I'm Lynn Moorer. I'm pleased to outline my proposal for a community monitoring committee related to Project Jupiter, and I thank you for considering it. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions at the close of my presentation. And my presentation includes several citizens to also provide their thoughts on this. This proposal is for an independent information forum related to Project Jupiter, operated by and for interested citizens. It's based on my experience in 2 states where I worked as an environmental consultant before attending law school. In Nebraska, the monitoring committee dealt with a proposed nuclear waste disposal facility. In Pennsylvania, it dealt with a proposed commercial hazardous waste incinerator. In each state, the city's formation was required by state law. It was a wise provision because in both cases, the local monitoring committee provided a very valuable function and served admirably to inform citizens, elected representatives, news media, and the public at large through focused meetings with key players, including regulators involved. I think the time is ripe for setting up a community monitoring committee in Doña County to take a close look at Project Jupiter from many important perspectives. It can provide a valuable service for education and an essential outlet for robust discussion about a project of immense public interest. My proposal envisions 11 committee members who are appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. 2 would be selected based on letters of interest submitted by citizens by each commissioner residing in their district. The commission chair selects a 3rd member residing anywhere in the county, so there's an odd number of committee members. The commissioners would take responsibility for selecting committee members who have a balance of perspectives. It would not be a good idea to appoint to the committee any candidates for public office or people on a soapbox. The letter of interest, which is the last page in your packet, includes the contact information for each interested citizen. This means each commissioner can call and chat briefly with each interested citizen in their district to get to know them a little better before making a decision. In fact, I would recommend it for people you don't already know. Finally, the members selected may not have any financial interest in or support of, no financial interest in support of or against Project Jupiter. Committee members would then elect their officers who would run the committee and all its meetings, both business meetings and information meetings. The committee would convene an information meeting approximately every month, depending on availability of invited experts. Each roughly 4-hour meeting, preferably during the day on a Saturday, would focus on one main topic related to Project Jupiter selected by the committee. For example, water usage or air emissions or economic impact. This will allow in-depth examination and energetic discussion regarding each main issue. The committee might decide down the road that one or more subjects need to be revisited for an additional information meeting or 2 because of changes the Project Jupiter companies made to their technology, for example. If the New Mexico Environment Department denies the requested air permit, that will be a game changer, of course. At each information meeting, members of the committee, members of the public, county commissioners, and news media representatives would have an opportunity to ask questions and/or briefly present their own research findings on the selected topic after the Project Jupiter representatives and the invited experts' presentations. The public would be invited to suggest future meeting topics, experts, and questions at each meeting and on the county website. The committee would select each meeting location in Doña County, rotating locations among the places most directly affected by Project Jupiter. Each information meeting would include a break in the middle of the meeting session when water, snacks, and finger food can be shared. The public will be invited to bring snacks and finger food to share at future meetings. And I can tell you that in Nebraska and Pennsylvania, this was one of the favorite parts of the meeting. A great social occasion. Each committee meeting would be recorded on video, then posted on the County Project Jupiter website. The plan is to have a Spanish interpreter and a court reporter assist at each committee meeting. You all fully recognize that Spanish interpretation is essential to allow everyone affected by the project to fully participate. The court reporter would help assure that a complete, verified record of each meeting is created, a record that is key to holding everyone accountable. The meeting transcripts in English and Spanish can then be posted on the county website for any interested party to review. With respect to the county website, my proposal envisions the committee having responsibility for the website content related to Project Jupiter, conducting research in order to answer the questions posed and offer new information. This important aspect needs to be conducted by qualified persons with experience in vetting experts and so-called expert information in environmental, energy, and economic fields at a minimum. The county would underwrite the committee's operating expenses and provide logistical support. Monies could be used for, but not limited to, travel expenses, fees, and accommodations for experts, news media notices, rental fees associated with meeting facilities, refreshments for meeting breaks, a Spanish interpreter, possibly a Spanish translator for transcripts if it turns out the court reporter is not a fluent Spanish person, a person who is not fluent in Spanish, I mean to say, a court reporter, and office supplies. And no funds would be accepted from Project Jupiter for anything related to the committee, nor would there be any reimbursement to Project Jupiter for any of its expenses for participation in committee meetings. An essential component of this proposal is that the commission send a communication to all Project Jupiter companies instructing them to cooperate with the committee in all respects. This includes Project Jupiter companies participating in information meetings when invited to present on a topic, a specific topic selected by the committee. It also includes providing to the committee all its presentation materials in English and Spanish 96 hours or 4 days prior to the meeting, as well as any other non-sensitive documentation the committee requests. Similar to the requirements the U.S. Senate committees use for their invited witnesses and guests, this provides all committee members the opportunity to study the materials and prepare informed questions prior to the meeting, thus making the meetings far more valuable. As soon as the committee receives the presentation materials, they will be posted to the website so everyone can study them prior to the meeting. As I see it, the information must be provided regardless of format. It can be provided on ordinary pieces of paper or on spreadsheets, or it can be provided in a compilation of company documents which record the original data. PowerPoint presentations, if used, should be provided, but they don't constitute a substitute for actual documentation, which should be provided to the committee. It's not sufficient to assert that information need not be supplied because, for example, a state agency doesn't have certain online formatting issues figured out. This is the explanation for why Project Jupiter did not submit the first and second quarter employment reports as required. Project Jupiter, which is supposed to have the underlying data, needs to provide it, regardless of format. At last Tuesday's commission meeting, Oracle and Stack Company representatives could have just stated the jobs numbers orally, omitting any confidential information and referring to notes if necessary. That would have worked fine. For companies that tout their cutting-edge leadership in the burgeoning data center industry, I have no doubt they can solve the problem. For example, of getting accurate and complete employment numbers to Doña County regularly and on time as required, if they choose to. The format does not matter. It would be a good idea if all commissioners attended each meeting. It would be like attendance at a workshop, would not involve formulation of public policy, and thus would not violate New Mexico's Open Meetings Act. Commissioners may ask questions like everyone else. They can learn and vigorously discuss along with everyone there. Importantly, they can share if a Project Jupiter representative told them privately something different from what they say at the meeting. And they can also share their own research if they have some. My proposal does not envision creation of any kind of report to memorialize what is learned at the information meetings. Rather, one learns by attending and participating at the meeting or reviewing the video online afterward, or perhaps both. This monitoring committee concept is distinct from a town hall meeting in significant ways. The monitoring committee dives deep into one subject per meeting with significant research preparatory to the meeting. Also, it features at least one expert in addition to Project Jupiter representatives so that there can be substantive analysis from at least two perspectives. By contrast, town halls deal with multiple subjects without significant preparation. Therefore, they don't go very deep, and I've never seen a town hall that had a court reporter who transcribed everything that was said. At best, town halls tend to be haphazard, not very educational, and generally unsatisfying to concerned citizens who want to get to the bottom of the issues important to them and who are interested in holding the developer representatives accountable for what they said at that meeting. In my experience, these monitoring committee meetings can help peel away most of the public relations gloss that one inevitably encounters with projects of high public interest and concern spurred by developers with deep pockets. I heartily recommend this community monitoring committee concept to you. It is superior to all other concepts if your goal is informed study and robust discussion about key public issues. And I will make certain that it is not used as a political platform or political tool. Now, I have several citizens who are interested in also presenting short comments to you regarding this particular idea. And then once they are finished, I think there are 5 of them, then I'll be happy to answer your questions. Does that work,
I think so.
Mr. Chair?
Are we okay with that? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do I need to move that? Okay,
And I don't know, I mean, you can move it down a little bit, just to make sure that way. That's fine.
okay. Better?
Thank you.
Better.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Joanne Bingle, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak briefly about this terrific Community Monitoring Committee. The idea will help Doña County residents. But first, I'd like to salute my commissioner, Commissioner Chaparro, for her steadfast commitment to the folks in her district. The Community Monitoring Committee, as a serious study committee, can help pierce and clear much of the fog about what we can expect to happen to us as residents as a result of Project Jupiter, both the positive and the negative. For it to work as intended, I think it is, For it to work as intended, I think it is probably true, as Lynn's experience in other states does indicate, that the committee will need the commissioner's assistance in letting the Project Jupiter companies understand clearly that they all need to cooperate fully with the committee. The company representatives who have spoken publicly with the commission have committed to be here long-term to have ongoing communication with the county residents, and to be transparent and accountable. The Oracle representative at the board's meeting last Tuesday committed to be here whenever the county wanted him to be here. Company representatives have also enunciated a desire to combat disinformation. This monitoring committee will provide the perfect vehicle to achieve that if you help them see that it is in their best interest to cooperate on an ongoing basis with the committee. And this means showing up and presenting information when invited and providing the documents that the committee requests. Even if they are slow to recognize that cooperation is in their best interest, your instruction to them, of course, needs to respectfully make clear that lack of cooperation is not an option. I am excited that this Community Monitoring Committee proposal has been put before you, and there are folks in this county who look forward to this being adopted. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Diane Starbuck, for the record. This Community Monitoring Committee will provide a great service to Doña County. It will provide a citizen-led information forum that goes a long way to meeting the needs of all citizens across the county who are hungry for thorough, fact-based information about Project Jupiter. When the commissioners appoint 2 members from each of their districts to the committee, they can make sure that there's a good balance of viewpoints. There are community leaders who are interested in serving on the committee, who are experienced in running good, informative meetings where all points of view can be expressed. The plan that these meetings focus on one topic per meeting is a good idea. This will allow us all to take a relatively deep dive into one important subject rather than a scattershot approach, which attempts to cover many subjects. These scattershot meetings usually leave citizens pretty unsatisfied, as we could see last week. We expect to learn a lot. This will be assisted by the ability to ask questions of experts and Project Jupiter representatives with adequate time for follow-up questions and a little dialogue so that information can be clarified. We'll be able to receive in-depth answers to our questions and engage in enough dialogue to come to better understandings of a lot of the key information about Project Jupiter's planned operation. Another valuable feature of this information forum by and for citizens is that everything will be on record and everyone will be able to hear the answers. It's very frustrating when a representative tells you some important fact in a private chat, but there is no way to hold them accountable for what they said unless you're wearing a wire. The meeting setup where everything is recorded and transcribed will solve that. Please give serious consideration to forming a community monitoring committee so all stakeholders can receive solid factual information about what is planned and underway at the huge Project Jupiter operation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you all very much. My name's Patty Hughes. The Community Monitoring Committee, I think, is an excellent idea. County residents need a serious study committee run by citizens that seeks and finds straight, factual answers to our questions about Project Jupiter. This includes what Project Jupiter has been doing, what it is doing, and what it plans to do. We need to hear from experts who increase our understanding of the bigger picture in which Project Jupiter is operating, as well as from the Project Jupiter representatives. We also need to know, when these representatives don't know, the answer to something important. We have citizens who are interested in being appointed to the monitoring committee who have the skill and experience to organize and lead public information meetings that accomplish significant learning and encourage discussion of key issues of prime importance that are to all of us. To be effective and have credibility, it's critical that citizens run the monitoring committee, not the commission or paid outsiders. Those who have experience with information forum citizen committees know that moderators have a useful, don't have a useful place in the meetings and are not needed. Good committee chairs can do the job of running balanced meetings. We know from experience that moderators tend to do more harm than good and become targets of distrust and derision from concerned citizens. Moderators invariably view their job as keeping a lid on things. The upshot is that in-depth questioning is squelched or smothered. I encourage you to discard the moderator idea. The Community Monitoring Committee concept envisions seeking input from citizens every step of the way about what subjects to study, one at a time, about which experts to invite, about where in the county to meet, and about when to meet. Occasionally, that commitment to public input can get messy, but it's entirely manageable and very worth it. This is a committee by and for the citizens. It's also inevitable that you commissioners will benefit from this study and discussion along with the committee members and the public who also participate. I look forward to it. I ask each of you to move this proposal forward and approve it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
My name's Mark Weller. My wife Jamie and I moved here last August from Dallas, and we live in District 4 up by Red Hawk Golf Course. And I am a retired telecom executive. My company, Frontier Communications, which was very similar to CenturyLink. They had operations in 26 states, was acquired by Verizon last year. I was offered early retirement, and I took it, and we moved here to Las Cruces, and have enjoyed it very much. When we moved and the decisions were made on Project Jupiter, I was not involved. I was not aware and so forth. So got up to speed later and learned how the approval process went and so forth. In my background in my company, I was in telecom for 35 years. And I was involved primarily in business decisions, business cases, contracts, things of that nature, providing support information, and then in my later years approving decisions. And reading the events of Project Jupiter, I was very familiar with the process that was followed. And frankly, I think I have had similar situations happen to me in business before. There are a lot of similarities, frankly. So earlier this year, I was, when the website went up, I downloaded documents that were the contracts and agreements and and the non-disclosure agreements and what it was posted, and started to dig in, investigate exactly what was promised, what was committed to, what was the back and forth. And I sat down with Lynn a while ago, so because I was reaching out to her in her legal capacity, and she shared with me an earlier version of her proposal for the committee, and I was impressed, and I thought that's exactly what we need, and so I have been supporting her since then. In that, I'm very happy to see that it has gotten this far with the commission, and that you're taking it seriously. I think it's exactly what needed. In my mind, the principal issue right now is what can the county do to hold the developer, Oracle, accountable for what has been committed to. So I'm very interested in helping with that. I think my background lends to that. But I wanted to speak with you briefly today and lend my support as a former corporate businessman to this effort. I think it's exactly the right thing to do. So thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for this opportunity to address this issue. What I see is a community that is politically energized around this issue. I am grateful for the political energy and the citizen involvement. Democracy is not and has never been a spectator sport. It's for those who want to engage, and your citizens are engaged, as you saw last Tuesday. I'm in dialogue constantly with people about Jupiter. Some people have no grasp of the basic facts. For example, IRBs are not public money. Many people still think that the county is investing in something. The county's not investing in something. Private investors are investing. And that's a very substantial fact, but the facts haven't been established. Unfortunately, the media has not been effective in communicating the facts. So if there were a commission that could determine fact, that would go a long way to helping the citizens make the right decisions. So whatever this commission can do to determine fact and shine light on these issues would be very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you.
I am happy to entertain any questions you may have or comments. That could be very helpful too.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Chaparro.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, thank you so much. I am so pleased. I didn't want to say happy 4 times, but I'm very pleased with your presentation. I must apologize for not having or not carving out time to meet with you. I have a full-time job, the commission, and personal obligations at this time, and I will carve out time next week. I have trials the rest of the week. I think this proposal should have been done before Project Jupiter was voted on, quite frankly, and that way we could have obtained the information needed so that the community could have been informed, and that we commissioners would have the opportunity to represent you adequately, at least adequately, if not effectively. But moving on to what you've stated in the presentation regarding video recording, Spanish interpreters and transcript, I think that is a fabulous idea, but I will insist on AOC certified interpreters, and I will insist on ATA translators so that we don't have helter-skelter translations or AI translations, because the certified interpreters in this area will recognize the adequate language or what is required, the required language for interpreting, required language for translation in this particular area. It's different from northern New Mexico, it's different from Colorado or Florida or wherever else we may need them. I do have a question, if the committee disagrees, who do you envision will have the final say before going to the county or the BOCC? Let's say there's a disagreement among your commission or your committee members as to which issue to address at a certain meeting. I'm just thinking in the future. What are you envisioning regarding that?
The plan to have an odd number of committee members was intentional. So you cannot have a tie, and the majority rules. And it is the committee that decides among themselves what to study, when, et cetera. I can tell you from experience that the commission, should it think that it might help to insert itself, it won't. I can tell you for sure in Nebraska or in Pennsylvania, where I have experience, it was clear that the county commissioners needed to stay away. That is, they can attend the meetings, of course, but they were not decision makers once the committee was set up. And it worked fine that way. The majority ruling was the end of the matter. But I'll tell you that there really did not appear to be any significant disagreement. As long as the committee was making progress, they got people to enlighten them. We had a steady stream of experts and regulatory people too. We invited people from the applicable state agencies to come explain things too. There were no issues, but what I envision is if there is disagreement, the majority rules and the committee decides. And in some cases, it may be a decision, okay, we're not going to do this. We're not going to go into that particular subject. We're going to go do something else. From my perspective and based upon so many people I have spoken with about this idea, there is a multitude of things to investigate. And this could go on for a long time in terms of digging deep. So I think I have confidence in folks with your wisdom in selecting good committee members who you will chat with enough to kind of get a feel of them a little bit, that we can all work amicably together and achieve good work, even though there may be disagreement from time to time.
Thank you.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chair.
Kimball? Yeah.
Lynn, thank you for being here, and I'm glad I did meet with you before. So not necessarily how Commissioner Chaparro's asking, but would the committee then report to us at some point or any point? Or have you had any points where the committee said, we really need to ask the commission to do something about this? Would you bring something to us and say, we'd like to request you look at this or do that? Is there any kind of that interaction?
I suppose that's possible if, after thorough discussion among the committee members, that a plan and a potential goal can be well enunciated and agreed upon. However, the one caveat is it cannot yield in the end any impression that the commission is controlling the committee.
Right.
I know that will kill it immediately, okay? So there's got to be a way, if somehow or another there's some special thing that the committee together, based upon their research and discussion and investigation, wants to do have some special communication with the commission about this, I suppose it's feasible, but I can assure you it cannot be some sort of a communication and result which would cause there to
Defeats the
be any
purpose.
question about the independence of this citizens committee.
Right. So what I think about it is that this is unemotional, it's educational, it's supportive of the commission and supportive of the community, and I think it's a great idea. I think the fact that you can bring people together and discuss things in an intelligent manner and listen to each other, I think it's an excellent idea. And we just haven't, I know before Jupiter came, the commission didn't have a chance to do that, but going forward, we can't miss this opportunity.
And may I just reiterate that your presence is strongly encouraged at all the meetings so that you can ask questions along with everybody else, and you can enlighten us if you've heard something different from the Project Jupiter people than what they've just told whoever's at the meeting, the committee and the attendees. Because I know that can happen. that you can have all kinds of different pieces of information that don't really all add up. And so your role, in addition to supporting the committee and appointing the members, can also be critical in helping to bring to our attention as a participant in the meetings if you're seeing something or had heard something different. Because we do want to achieve as close to truth as we can.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I bring up some legal issues that I'm seeing? I mean, and it's not, I mean, the committee, it's a great idea. But there's something that I've spotted, a few things that I've spotted, and we'll just start with what I would think is low-hanging fruit. In the meeting format, public will be invited to bring snacks and finger food to share at future meetings. And then county commission support, one of the things the money could be used for is refreshments for meeting breaks. If someone gets sick because I made something and I'm a terrible cook, please don't have me make anything. But if someone gets sick because I made something, the finger's gonna be pointed at the county, because if the county's intermingling funds for food and people are being invited to bring food, people are gonna point at us. And there's a risk issue there with someone getting sick, food safety, who's gonna clean up at the end? If stuff needs to be stored prior to the meeting, who's storing it? Is it us? Is it the county, or is it the public? Where is it being stored? Things like that. Going to the county commission support, this is more than just, hey, we're gonna underwrite. There's appropriations, procurement policies. We talk about travel expenses, fees, accommodations for experts, our travel policies, budget approval. So we should consider identifying where that funding is coming from, who authorizes it, and is there a budget cap? Because, I mean, if we're flying people in, I'm not saying this is gonna happen, but if we're flying someone in from Switzerland because they're the expert, where we have experts within the state, perhaps there's a difference there in how much we're spending on that. And, we wanna make sure we're spending taxpayer dollars fiscally appropriately. The commission instruction to Project Jupiter, I'm not sure that the IRB allows the commission to instruct Project Jupiter to show up. It does instruct Project Jupiter to do the job reports, but I can get with our bond counsel on that and see if the commission has that authority to say, you will show up and you will provide these other things as well. I'm not sure that that's legally possible. I'll get with our bond counsel and find out about that. Commissioner participation, it's a great idea. Problem is if commissioners start, like if the chair gets up and says, whoa, I spoke to Joe Blow at Oracle and he said this, and then Commissioner Chaparro says, actually, I spoke with Jane Doe at Stack and she said that. The Commissioner Kimball goes up and says, actually, I spoke with so-and-so at Yucca Growth and they said this. Now you're having a discussion. Even if it's in a public setting, now you're literally talking with each other and you might have an OMA issue there. And so I don't want that to be an OMA violation. If the way to resolve that is it's a public meeting, then it's a public meeting and we put out an agenda notice and all. But to say that it would not violate, I think that's coming to a conclusion that we can't be sure of at this point. A couple more things. This whole thing is great, but it doesn't say when the committee ceases to exist. Does it ever cease to exist? Does it exist in perpetuity? Does it exist for 30 years with the IRB? When does it cease to exist? At what point? Is it through construction operations? And does the board have the ability to dissolve this committee if there's nothing there saying it ceases to exist at some point? Is there a sunset date? And to Commissioner Kimball's point, is there annual reports submitted as to what was discussed, what has been changed? Does it remain necessary? So it should address the duration, sunset, periodic review, and authority for dissolving it. And with regards to the moderator, you know, if an outside moderator is not wanted, that's legally sufficient, but to make sure that it's run, that there's an order to this, there should be procedures, you know, procedural rules. Perhaps the board writes it up, perhaps the committee writes it up. Someone writes up procedural rules, so whoever the moderator is sticks to those rules. The chair of the committee, whoever the committee chooses is going to chair the place, or whoever they might choose as a moderator, can ensure that the meeting is administered fairly, consistently. Because if we just have a hodgepodge of people talking, people are going to start interrupting each other. Someone needs to keep order, regardless of the public wanting to, well, you don't want to be loud, that's great, but someone needs to keep order. Are there time constraints on input, what have you? So those are the things, I guess to sum it up, the proposal itself has a number of operational recommendations that presume that there is legal authority for the committee to receive county funding, direct county resources. I'll go back to the Project Jupiter, require their cooperation, and essentially operating as part of county government. So we have to identify, and I'll look up the Project Jupiter thing, legal sources for each proposed authority, and determine if implementation would require an ordinance resolution, contract amendment perhaps, budget appropriations, or other formal actions from the committee, from the commission. I apologize. Thank you, Chair.
So, thank you, Alonso. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I think on the first two items, those are kind of more procedural issues in terms of, you know, the funding and the food and things like that. Logistical wise, we can figure that out. I think also in terms of reimbursement, you know, we can probably coordinate, especially using state rules in terms of reimbursement for travel and things like that. So we don't run afoul of any state laws, but I'm sure, I think there's quite a few local experts potentially from NMSU within the state, NM Tech, you know, maybe even UNM, wherever we may find them. I think there's a lot of potential. So I think I understand kind of putting limits, but we can, I think, like I said, logistically, we could work through those details.
And perhaps have them in the proposal, or whatever the proposal ends up being in its finalized form, that they can do everything in their power to keep it locally or to keep the costs down.
Or we could potentially create, you know, I think memorialize, I don't know if memorialize is the right word technically, but, you know, we could, I guess as a commission, approve this. And then, well, we don't put those details in as the board moves forward or gets created, and then they can help determine with us how those come up. So that way we're in agreement and everybody's, you know, we can probably figure, at least that's in my mind what we could potentially do. I think you're right on the compelling the companies to participate. I don't know that we would have that legal authority to tell them and force them to participate. However, you know,
May I speak one as soon as you're finished?
yes, please. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think what it comes down to is, you know, they may not legally have to, but I think I don't know if this is the right way to put it. So if it comes out in maybe the not wrong way, I think we're at some point understand where the legal requirements are and the contractual requirements are of the IRB. Understand that. But I think in some ways, when it comes to this topic, we're well beyond contractual obligations. And the reason I say that is because, you know, going back a few years, no one batted an eye at a data center. But understanding where we're at in terms of political and or public concern around this, to me, from a community standpoint, it would serve the companies as well as obviously the county, but especially the companies coming in to share the information. And I think one of the questions I was going to have for Ms. Moore was around, you know, trying to make sure, you know, if they're to comply with this, you know, trying to manage what is proprietary versus what's not, because I think there's a lot of public information when you that's already submitted. So air permits, that's public knowledge. Commitments in the water, that's all public knowledge. How are they going to meet those requirements? Those, to me, that can be very public and part of this conversation. Now, they don't need to get into how specifically they design it or operate and do all that. I think there's, we don't need to maybe go into that level, but I think where the public is concerned, there's that piece of it. So I understand. I think we can maybe work through all those items that you noted to get to a final.
And I think it's a matter of verbiage, maybe requesting or inviting or encouraging them to go, versus you will show up. To your point, they'd probably be better off showing up, but who are we to say, right? But back to the food thing one more time. My concern wasn't that the county provides it. My concern is the public's invited to.
Yeah, and becoming a
also.
liability.
Yes.
I understand.
All right. This was a proposal to help things along, and I think this is entirely workable, and this mirrors what I know has worked in 2 other states, Mr. Attorney. I know from experience, or else I would not have offered it. This is a successful model. I know that we have had numerous offers to meet, most recently at the last meeting from the Oracle representative who said he was committed to be here whenever the county wants him to be here. So I see this letter as taking him up on the offer and taking up, I went back and looked at the tape, Napier, Mr. Napier, who made promises in September, which was the meeting when the IRB was approved. He also made similar promises, all right? So the letter is a matter of taking them up on their offers. And I had spoken with Mr. Lopez about being ready with a very well-drawn-up draft of that letter to be able to put those promises in there. And I wasn't going to bring any sort of a heavy legal aspect to it. That would have been politically stupid, and I am not politically stupid. All right?
Yeah, and I did want to note, and maybe this is something, just a thought. The IRB approval was a hearing. And so if Mr. Napier did commit to that, I have to go back and look.
It's on the tape, yes.
Then that's part of the hearing record. And so maybe that's an opportunity to utilize some of that. Now, I know he's not committing for all of the entities for it, but being the representative that spoke, there might be an opportunity to leverage that testimony.
Ms. Moore, and I did not mean to offend you. I apologize for that. I know this has worked. You've explained that here. So that was in no way my intent. I was just finding legal things that I want to bring it up.
And I would not have been coming here to waste anybody's time if I didn't know that this would work just fine. Now, the other aspect of it is that we have some very good, talented people who are interested in being on the committee who know how to run meetings. And so they know how to, and in fact, that is the goal, to encourage robust discussion, a balance of points of view, and absolutely, we want to hear from the Project Jupiter people and the experts. That's why we're inviting them. So it would be entirely counterproductive to let it devolve into, well, it never would. It would not devolve into any sort of chaos, all right? So rest assured, order will be kept. That is not going to be an issue. The only thing that I intentionally left up in the air, and I thought that the commission can decide this whenever it seems appropriate, is when the committee should then be dissolved. And I think there are so many different steps along the way that could happen that could cause an impetus for having it dissolved, that it would be foolish for me to be any more specific along the way. Just in general, we might say it will exist as long as the commission thinks that it serves a good purpose. And that is amorphous enough to cover the bases. I think there's many things that can be developing down the road, and it would be completely idiotic to establish a particular time frame for this. I think That's the beauty of this particular committee idea, that it can respond to developments.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Kimball.
if I could just say, first of all, funding, I think this could be covered under economic development outreach, because that's what we're talking about, is this economic development project. And I may be wrong there, but I think we could do it under, because the commission doesn't have a budget for things like this, so economic development outreach. The second thing is, what if we put it on there as time limited to the end of this fiscal year, because the funds will need to be attached, and then renewed as necessary at the end of the fiscal year, because if there are going to be funds, we have to have it in a budget. And so we can't just say indefinitely, and then this goes on for 30 years and we're still doing it. So at the first of every year, perhaps we could renew it and see if we need more funding, less funding, see if it wants to continue. It's a touch point
Yeah.
on should the committee continue.
Yeah, and I'm open to how we want to do it, especially like, I understand what you're saying in terms of providing a budget so that we can continue on. We can entertain that. I had, and I think a couple of the concerns that I had, and I think this is where, I think in terms of the length, because I think this is, I think like you're saying, Ms. Moore, is appropriate. So one of the pieces that I think is a very valid point, and we've already seen this with Project Jupiter, because it happens with a lot of commercial and industrial projects that sometimes what you plan at step one will change along the way. And we've already seen a couple of those changes within Project Jupiter. That is normal. But I think it's also a valid point to be able to come back and say, hey, when we talked on this day during this presentation, this was your plan. That's now changed. Could we come back and revisit to understand the details of how that plan has changed and what the impact is? Because I think, like I said, so I think that's kind of the potential benefit of not having, or at least trying to figure out how long we can have this. So I like that idea, to be able to have it over, because construction phase will continue through 2028, is my understanding. And so I think as things move forward, it gives us opportunity to be able to address that. I support this because I think very clearly, and my hope is this, is that I think as we have the presentations and we've had the information, when you start getting into the details is where all of that really kind of, where we address a lot of those concerns. And when I've had communication or discussions with people, I've been told that I'm ignorant, that I don't understand this, that I was fooled, that I've taken bribes, that I could go down the list of criticisms that I've had when I've done my research. And so my hope is that if this information comes from the community or directly from the developers, that hopefully that's the information and the fact that we get out of this. And that's my hope of this committee, is that we can, as you said, take the commission out of this and be able to bring facts. Because I think within the information, when you have those facts and establish the facts, there will be a little bit better understanding. It's not perfect, understand. That's not what I'm saying here. But just trying to share the facts and that to me is what drives a lot of this. My only question I had, and I know you've kind of addressed around the moderator piece of it already, so, but one, I didn't know if a court reporter was necessary or not. I know through AI tools, and I know Commissioner Chaparro will tell me, I know particularly when it comes to the Spanish translation, it's not always the best, but I didn't know, like, if this is gonna be online or recorded, if the transcript from the system would be adequate, or if there was a need for the court reporter.
There is a need for the court reporter. The AI business that looks at this sort of thing is not adequate. I think that's just fair to say. It is not adequate. And I appreciate you mentioning the fact that we're looking for the facts, okay? And so when I commented that this might be an opportunity for you to state a fact that you heard from Project Jupiter person A, which was different from what Commissioner Chaparro heard from Project Jupiter developer number 2, that you can state those facts. It is not formulation of public policy. So I disagree with your legal analysis respectfully. What is prohibited in the New Mexico Open Meetings Act is formulation of policy. You're not formulating policy, you're sharing facts, or you're discussing information that you have learned or want to clarify. You know, so you have a little bit of dialogue with the expert or a little bit of dialogue with Mr. Oracle. I'm sorry, I forget his last name. And to get the facts, but you're not formulating policy. And I think it's very important that all of you are there to the extent that you're able to be there and are interested in it. Because then another important part of this is that you're hearing then from all the folks who do attend and share their questions and concerns. And it is not formulation of policy, and it will not violate the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, in my legal opinion.
And I think I'll actually, we can have discussion about it. I actually will have to I probably lean more on, I think, the concern that Mr. Maestas is bringing up, mainly because, we could probably figure it out, because in my mind, I don't want to put any of the board, the county commission into any type of compromising situation where people could potentially do that, but I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm open to kind of how we want to handle it. But, in my mind, what it got me thinking of doing was when every time there's one of these planned, that we could have at least 2 of us that are signed up to go, and then the others could watch online, but we can figure that all out. I don't, like I said, I just don't want, we can figure that out. It's a logistical thing that we can determine. Absolutely, I want to be there to listen. I just don't want to put us in a compromising situation where someone could accuse us of violating the Open Meetings Act. Yes, Commissioner Kimball.
Publish that there might be a quorum, is that sufficient? Because if we're all at the same meeting and we talk and we go, hey, where do you want to go lunch, and we make a decision, we're breaking open meetings if we make a decision together.
No, again, I think it goes back to whether you're discussing what's taking place versus let's go get lunch. You can publish a notice of possible quorum, but you start deliberating amongst yourselves out loud, and that's where we'll differ, and that's okay. I think that may get to that point.
And Mr. Chair, if I
Yes,
may.
please.
And just to Mr. Maestas, I heard what you said, funding, budget, instructing Project Jupiter to show up. OMA, when is this project to commence? When does it dissolve? Having an annual report. I'm writing really fast, and you speak fast, by the way. Periodic review, order and procedure, and Ms. Moore, with all due respect, I do agree with Mr. Maestas as regarding the Open Meetings Act. We have to be very careful about that. The state auditor is really watching, and as they should be, and we as commissioners should be watching that Open Meetings Act as well. So we're going to have to be very careful to address that. It can be addressed. In my mind, it can be addressed. We'll just have to really lean on Mr. Maestas as to how to craft our attendance, because I honestly believe that all the commissioners would like to attend. Whether we show up at the same time or not, I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. I appreciate this idea. I really, really do. But I'm going to lean on Mr. Maestas heavily for this. And thank you for protecting us, Mr. Maestas, because sometimes we blunder. Another thing I'd like to also mention is if approached by any party, whatever party it is, for or against, to resist the temptation to have dinner, coffee, lunch, or whomever with parties that might want to influence the committee.
I anticipate that we will take that issue up at the first business meeting, the first organizational meeting where officers are elected. And I see that as one of the things to be discussed and probably adopted by the committee. I thought it would be presumptuous of me to put too many specific formulations down on paper because the committee needs to be deciding a lot of these things. But I recognize that concern and I share it, but I didn't think now was the time to spell that out. And because I've already spelled out the prohibition on having any financial interest in either for or against Project Jupiter. But I anticipate that being considered and discussed, any policy adopted at the first business meeting.
Thank you.
If it's okay, Mr. Chair, may I just clarify one more thing on the Open Meetings Act compliance? What it comes to, in my view, is that you all commissioners will be able to exercise enough discipline in your conversations with each other. I mean, that is at the meeting, so that you're just asking questions. You see, it's the subject matter of what you're talking about. If you're asking questions, clarifying, getting information, there should be no problem. It's like a workshop. But if then you are putting your heads together to say, well, maybe we should consider doing something, then that is getting into discussing policy. And that's where you need to draw the line. You don't do that. You see, and that's where I don't see a problem with you all attending if you are disciplined enough to keep your conversation, your public utterances question-oriented and getting your answers clarified.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to clarify that.
And thank you, Ms. Moore. I have confidence that the commissioners are disciplined to do that.
I do
However,
too. That's why
If I
I brought
may,
it up.
however, the citizens or those participating in the meeting may not understand that and demand answers. So if we can move forward to clarifying that along with our legal counsel, I've been to meetings where I've been put on the spot, and sometimes people don't understand that we're not able to answer questions about lawsuits or whatever discussions we've had in closed sessions. So we need to make that very, very clear. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think one of the other caveat that we may need to make, and I don't think this should be an issue, is just simply that because it's a community monitoring committee, that they wouldn't necessarily be speaking on behalf of the county or making policy. I think other than that piece of it, I mean, it's, like I said, I just, like, I know that's a kind of a disclaimer piece, but I also feel like because it's gonna be separated from the commission, that we just kind of state that this is where it is so that people don't misconstrue that. But otherwise, like I said, I like the idea of it being driven by the community to be able to, I think when we spoke about it, my concern around the town hall idea was that and you've addressed it here, town halls can be a mile wide and an inch deep. And like I said, when it comes down to it, I love the idea of having specific topics so that you can get into those details and discuss it, because I think, like I said, that's where it really matters. So I like that idea.
And I have another suggestion that might help also in this, is that this chairperson, who will be very competent for the committee, I envision this person making an opening statement clarifying things. I mean, kind of like setting the not exactly the rules of the road, but clarifying for everybody about what this committee is. And then also clarifying that the commissioners who are here today are not wearing their commissioner hats. They're here as ordinary Doña County residents who are learning along with all the rest of us. And they intend to participate just like the rest of us. And their questions are just as your questions are just as important as their questions, that sort of thing, to try to level the ground if possible. At least that's an idea. And I think that would go a long way to helping quite a few of the folks. Also would help take a little heat off of y'all.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Kimball.
Ms. Moore, if I could ask what do you want your role to be in on this committee? Are you going to apply to be one of the members?
Yes.
Or if we talked about getting a moderator, would you be the moderator?
No,
wanna
I don't
apply
think
for
we
one of
need
our
a moderator. No.
I just
no,
wanted
no.
to make sure, because if we say, okay, this is a committee Ms. Moore brought to us, and this is what we're going to do, and everybody goes, okay, what do we do now? And you're not there. I just want to make sure.
I live
What
in.
you hope your role is.
I live in the chair's district. He knows this.
Yes.
I am
All right,
going
thank
to.
you.
I am going to fill out my letter of interest just like everybody else.
Okay, so I don't know if there are no other questions. I guess the next thought would be possibly either on the next meeting or on the 25th, and then that way, okay. And then- I don't know that, well, I don't think all of us will be on the 25th. That'll be the one that I'll be out, and I don't know if, yeah, so we'll have to figure out how we,
Mr. Chair, if I may, we are prepared to go ahead and quickly add a resolution item on for next week's meeting for this because of your absence on the 25th. But I do have some questions that if we're going to do this quickly, that we need some answers to.
okay.
So.
And do you need them now today, or is it something we talk about behind
We
the
would
scenes?
need it kind of a nod from the commissioners as to what direction we go. Number one is a resolution the appropriate document to bring forward that kind of clarifies the purpose of this committee, how it's going to be set up? Is the committee, one thing that we don't have in here, is the committee going to be required to establish bylaws within the committee that they will operate under? We can certainly include in a resolution that the procurement process must be followed. Kind of to one of the comments, I'm not sure which of you mentioned it, but it would need to be most likely some kind of formal committee established by the board. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to use public funds for it, I believe. But otherwise, the OMA issues, we can probably work with our county attorneys to give you all some good guidance between now and then. That may not need to be part of the resolution. And just as a reminder, next Wednesday, hopefully you all will be there when the Attorney General's office is down here providing us the Open Meetings Act training. And that might be a great opportunity to ask some very specific questions of the AG's office staff for anything that you might have questions on related specifically to this. And then for Ms. Moore, you've got in the document, food from outside, public would be invited to bring that in. Is that a sticking point, or would you be good with
No.
the county just provides it?
I'm happy to have that adjusted as seems to be the wisest way to go. I put it in there because it was a very successful builder of camaraderie in Nebraska and in Pennsylvania. And it helped give people ownership of, the citizens ownership of the committee. That helped, they wanted to show up. If they were on the fence as to whether or not to come to a meeting, they wanted to show up to show off their latest recipe.
Understood. I think within the procurement process, we might be able to work with the committee on opportunities to support local businesses in the area that would be able to provide safe food that kind of meets the same intent. Happy to talk with you on that.
Mr. Chair? Yes. I think all we need to do is say, let's put a broad resolution. You as chair can do that. We can't vote now today, yes. You as chair can put a resolution on the next meeting to say we can look at this committee, because we're also going to need funding if we're going to be in different places to record the meetings or to broadcast them. There's going to be other funding as well, because not everywhere the committee might choose is going to have this kind of, technology there to do it. So I think we just need to put it on, you as chair can choose to put it on the
Yeah, we can.
on the next agenda, and then we can develop everything after it's on the agenda and approved to investigate. Can't
Yeah,
really do much between now and then. can we?
No. I would say that would give us at least a good framework. I think because the other part in my mind was, I'd love to see how, like, once the committee's there and formed, we could then determine the budget needed potentially for that and approve it. And if we already have a resolution that's approved, then we can say, oh, based on this resolution, we're going to approve this budget amount to support this resolution kind of thing. So I think the resolution makes sense to pass first. but we can leave a couple of things open and then come back and approve them based off of, the commission's already approved the resolution. It makes a lot, in my mind, easier because we're just now doing other things to support that. Okay. Awesome. All right, thank you, Ms. Moore.
Thank you very much for your consideration and your public service, all of you.
Thank you. All right. Oh. I know, Mr. Backus, I know we don't generally allow public input during a work session, but if you'd like to come up, I'll.
2 minutes, no more. And I did hand this out. I want to endorse this committee as an opportunity. I think it will be long-term, but I also want to request you consider something that needs to be done in the next 6 weeks, because that's when the air quality permit will be decided at that meeting. And I think that there's a whole lot of facts that are available, and I've summarized some facts. And just to point out that I've been an expert witness for utility matters for over 40 years, and I've been an expert witness in every El Paso Electric case in the last 3 decades that they've had. And so when I tell you that, and I'll just leave this one main point, Project Jupiter's output for kWh of power is over 900
Chair, may I? This is going above the agenda that's been posted for the work session. I think this needs to be spoken about at a later time.
Okay. I'd like to talk to you whenever you can, and if someone can, if you could talk afterwards, one or more of you, I'd very much appreciate an appointment.
Okay.
Thank
Understand.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Backus.
I endorse the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And I think with that, that's the end of our agenda for today. So I appreciate those that participated today, and we will see you all. We'll call this meeting, we'll call it adjourned at 11:47 a.m., and we will see you next week on next Tuesday at August 11th, 9 a.m. Thank you.